First and Now is the official Lions podcast, broadcasting inside the Wall Center, the Go-Goat Sports Studios. Had a little Sakaris and Price on my drive in here, of course. Connor Bedard not heading to Vancouver, likely to the Windy City, but that's another story for another day. Won't continue to rehash the lottery balls not bouncing in the Canucks' favor again, but it kind of feels like we've won a lottery of some sort here, Nikki.
It's Christmas Eve.
Yes, because we're heading up to Canada. By the time you're listening to this, those listening, we could be heading up the Coquihalla. Recording this later on a Tuesday, inside of 24 hours pretty much, until rookies will be on the field for their first activity. A little walkthrough practice at Hillside. Feels great, baby.
Like I said, just like Christmas Eve today. You got a practice tomorrow or a walkthrough with the rookies, and then the vets are all there on Sunday. There's a game later this month. It feels good saying that. We head to Regina.
Just over 3 weeks and change, yeah.
Yeah, it feels good just thinking about it, and being there is going to feel even better.
And it's a perfect opportunity to talk about our partner on the podcast, Tourism Kamloops. Hey, it's the tournament capital, Lions Camp, May 10th to 30th. Memorial Cup ended this month. Unfortunately, the hometown Blazers are not going to go in as the champ. They'll go in as the host, losing to the Seattle Thunderbirds. So it's the T-Birds in Winnipeg for the Western Hockey League title now, right?
Yeah,
so
that's Goliath versus Goliath too in that battle.
I know you're a Winnipeg Ice guy. It's more West teams, the better. Let's get a Kamloops Seattle rematch in the round robin and maybe the final. Who knows?
There's good storylines either way, I think. And then you got London as a heavy favorite in the OHL. You got Quebec as a heavy favorite in the Q. So it's going to be looks like the big boys are going to be coming to Kamloops later this month.
Yeah, it's a great time of year for all sports, really. Stanley Cup playoffs we've talked a bit about, but reminder, Kamloops are real places, rough edges embraced as a sign of memories well made and adventures well played. Biking, hiking, you like food and drink. Hey, Iron Road Brewing just up the hill from we might make a stop or two at Iron Road, get some patio beers and some appetizers in after practice.
There,
We talked about the Memorial Cup. Really, if you like the outdoors, it's a good place to be, and go hang out on the Thompson River. Tell you what, that whole place, Sandman Center, the hockey rink, the Shark Club there, it's going to be a happening spot here in a couple of weeks.
Oh yeah, and I think right now we have a tentative Saturday hike planned. The content crew here.
Yeah, we'll see.
Of us? Yeah,
if we
I'm game.
If we wake up early enough.
It's gonna be hot too, so we got to bring our water bottles and our sunscreen too for being outside.
Yeah, bought the sunscreen. I'm good there. We'll do the Costco or Walmart trip pretty much after practice. I think you got to get in, get the groceries, get your room set up, because basically our respective rooms, that's the work center. That's the center of the content universe. A lot of great stuff is going to be created. We'll have daily recaps with yours truly, Matt Baker, and some cool drone shots. Arrow Up, we've talked about the documentary. A lot happening. This is a lot to jam into one intro segment, but we are talking lots of camp. Giulio Caravatta going to join us in just a couple of minutes' time. Lions analyst back yet again on AM 730, the Lions Audio Network. Some exciting radio developments are happening too that we won't share yet, but we will be sharing, that involves you and I potentially. So
maybe
very exciting.
Allegedly,
very exciting. Looking forward to that. And so Giulio, interested to get his thoughts. We had him on right just before free agency or after free agency, I think it was. And now that the dust is settled and we know who's competing at what spot, we'll get his thoughts on a lot of things. But today kind of felt like an official open almost, because we had some media availability. We heard from Vernon Adams Jr., TJ Lee, Keon Hatcher, and Neil McAvoy. Just talking to these guys, they're excited, right?
That was another point today that felt a little real, that the season's right around the corner. We're seeing Vernon Adams in Surrey, and not just for his monthly visits that he was doing in the offseason, but because he's getting ready to go up to Kamloops too this week. Vernon, I think the message or the key talking point around Vernon's press conference today was that he's dialed in. He's more focused than ever going into the season. Doesn't feel like he has something to prove, but he knows that the standard is a standard now with this team. It's got to be greater than the West Final based off the standard that was set last year, and he knows that, and the guys know that, and they're gearing up for a Grey Cup this year.
Yeah, and he's anxious to get going. Just to kind of put all these questions behind. I
Yeah.
mean, he's dealing with all the questions about being the guy, and that inevitable first time without Nathan Rourke syndrome is going to linger for a while. Let's hope it doesn't, because let's hope the play on the field kind of evaporates that storyline. But these guys, we've talked about Lion King's camp and everything. Everyone is excited. So that, to me, when you hear the veterans right before, like Vernon was driving up to Kamloops right after that, you could just hear it in his voice just how excited he was. So the players very much on board with everything that's going on, and we've talked about Giulio Caravatta, former Lions quarterback. Before we get to Giulio, I have to talk about another former Lions quarterback. Sad news. At the age of 85, Joe Kapp passing away after a lengthy illness. Very sad news, and we've talked a little bit about Joe on our website, bclions.com. Top 5 in all the major passing categories. Of course, he has the distinction of being the first Grey Cup champion quarterback with the Lions in 1964. Both you and I don't often say this, not old enough to have seen him. Usually it's just you that's not old enough, but well before my time. But I know all about the legend of Joe Kapp. I mean, Lions championships, the rivalry with Hamilton and Angelo Mosca, and certainly that was talked about today. And then he did his thing south of the border, too. Very much a well-known commodity in the football world, Mr. Joe Kapp.
Yeah, definitely a sad day to hear that news, but Joe Kapp going down was one of the greatest Lions ever, one of the greatest CFL players ever, so obviously respect him for all he did, both in Canada and in the States, too, in his career there, and he's got to pay respect to when it's due.
Canadian Football Hall of Fame, BC Sports Hall of Fame, and again, this is the great trivia question. The only quarterback in the modern era that we know of to have played in a Grey Cup, a Super Bowl, and a Rose Bowl. Won the Grey Cup again in 64, like we talked about. Came up short in the Super Bowl, Vikings and Chiefs, Super Bowl 4 or 5, I think one of those. One of the first ones. And he's the only one that has the distinction of playing quarterback in all three. And I wanted to share a tweet from our friend Travis Lulay. Travis weighing in on Joe's passing. At Travis Lulay on Twitter. This is very cool. One of my favorite moments with the Lions was sharing a meal with the 5, in brackets he puts at the time because it was before 2011, 5 franchise Grey Cup winning QBs. Travis says, I sat next to Joe. I barely said a word that night, just sat back and listened to his stories. R.I.P. to a legend. And Neil McAvoy talked about Joe today in his media availability. You can get that at bclions.com. Legend, gone at 85, but not ever forgotten.
Nope, and another person with his number retired too in thereafter. So
yeah, number 22.
Yep.
And Neil talked about that. I mean, Joe also served as the Lions GM in 1990, and he was the one who signed Doug Flutie. He let Doug Flutie unretire the number for a couple of years. So just kind of tells you a lot about Joe Kapp, the person. May he rest in peace. Giulio Caravatta, he knows a thing or two about Joe Kapp. We'll talk to Giulio. Get a little preview of Lions camp coming up on First and Now. And we've tracked him down, Giulio Caravatta, former Lions quarterback, kickoff specialist, radio analyst. What is this, Giulio? Year 24, 25 in the booth? What's going on?
25.
25. That's like a silver watch anniversary, isn't it?
Yeah, 25, and then 8 years as a player. So I'm looking at year 33?
Year 33.
That
well,
adds up, yeah.
It probably feels like 33 years since Moj took over. Is that right?
I'm not going to say anything about that.
We'll plead the fifth on that one, as they say. Just kidding. Moj, friend of the program, one of the all-time greats, and looking forward to having the dynamic duo back here in the booth. May 27th, first broadcast, AM 7:30, the whole deal. We're going to talk training camp, Giulio, but Nick and I were kicking this around in our intro. Sad news this week as Joe Kapp, the legend, really, just more than a BC Lions legend, really a football legend, very successful away from the game. What are your thoughts of Joe Kapp as we tribute him on the day he passes?
Yeah, I obviously, I wasn't, I didn't see him play, or obviously, my memory, my biggest memory is the whole incident that he had with Mosca at the Grey Cup. That was, that was something I'll never forget, and the buzz that went around after that happened, and how everybody was talking about it. And then to see the video was just something else. But it just goes to show you how fiery he was even at that point. You know, just a tremendous competitor. You don't accomplish the things that he did in football without being really good at what you do. And whether it was as a player or as a coach, you know, he had a lot of success. And you know, he was one of the great characters in football, and we were lucky to have him.
Very well said. And yeah, I mean, might not be fair, but that will definitely be a memory that comes up for maybe a lot of the younger folks, you know, like ourselves, who didn't necessarily see him play, but we know all the stories. And yeah, years later, the legend of that Mosca feud definitely is definitely lives on. And who knows, maybe those two are exchanging some pleasantries up above as we speak.
I doubt it.
I doubt it. Yeah. Pleasantries, use that term loosely. But anyway, on to the current state of affairs. As we're recording this on the eve of rookie camp, first-year camp, because some of these guys aren't even rookies with their various experiences south of the border and whatnot. But looking at training camp as a whole in this season getting underway finally, Giulio, what storyline most intrigues you with this team?
Well, I think you know, obviously the biggest storyline I think for me is the quarterback, right? And you know, Vernon Adams is going to be the number one quarterback, and you've got a very good you know, I don't even want to call him a backup, but Dane Evans is going to be a very, very good supporting cast member of that quarterbacking group, and I'm anxious to see how Jordan McSimic has now maybe tweaked and changed a few things offensively to fit Vernon's game. I think that's one of the things that really, you know, stood out to me last year was about how good a job Vernon did given the circumstances of him getting traded halfway through the year, coming to a team that was, you know, really clipping along offensively, having to learn a new offense, and then, you know, dealing with all the outside stuff about moving your family and all those things that weigh on somebody. And so for what he did on the field, I thought was extraordinary. And I'm excited to see how Jordan McSimic has changed the offense to fit more what he does. And, you know, that's something that, you know, I think all Lions fans are going to be looking at. You know, they're pretty loaded everywhere. You know, I mean, I really, you mean the receiving core? What can you say about that? You know, obviously you lose a future Hall of Famer in Brian Burnham, but Keon Hatcher's not going to be much of a step down.
Right.
Dominic Rhymes, Lucky Whitehead, Alexander Hollins. You know, I mean, these kinds of guys that are going to come back and be better and stronger. And as I said, I you know, I mean, offensive line wise, I don't think they're gonna you know, they're gonna be just as good or better. Michael Couture, you know, coming on board and solidifying in the middle there. I just don't see very many holes. So and you know, that's something that I think we've all talked about heading into this season is you know, they had a very good team last year and there's not much change. So I look forward to just seeing how, you know, it all kind of comes together, because that's what training camp is, you know, developing that chemistry and getting those, you know, getting a defense. And, you know, you can practice all you want in the off season, guys, but until you kind of, you know, get out there and start practicing against the defense and the compete level is what it is, do you start to see some of these guys, you know, really show their colors.
And Giulio, you touched on maybe the biggest change coming into training camp, or the most constant change that's not going to be there in this training camp, is Brian Burnham not being there this year.
Yeah.
So with the receiving core this year, I mean, Burnham's production last year, he only had 596 yards, but it was in 9 games, which is like a 1,200 yard pace over the season. So that's a lot of production. That is going to be outside of this lineup. How do you see that being handled this season with, because you said the group is loaded? Do you see like Dominic Grimes going to 1,500 yards maybe? Do you see the entire group kind of accounting for that loss in Burnham?
Yeah, I think that's probably a really good assessment, Nick. I think you probably hit it right on the head. I think you're not going to see just one guy kind of you know, play a role here. I think you're going to see multiple guys. And the thing about this offense is that Hatcher is most likely the guy that's going to step into Burnham's spot, right? And so if that's the case without moving all sorts of bodies all over the place, most of that offense went through Burnham, right? It was just like when G-Roy was here, everything went through him. So I would suspect that, Hatch is going to see a lot of that. But the thing about what makes their offense so difficult to defend is that they can hit you in a lot of different ways. And as I said, with all the receivers, right? Like, they can hurt you with Hatcher, they can hurt you with Rhymes, they can hurt you with Whitehead, right? So there's a lot of different things that play there that can hurt you from a defensive standpoint, and that's what you need to be. You need to be multifaceted in this league and have multiple options to be successful, because you can't just rely on one guy.
We've talked about it this offseason too, but the running back spot too, it's one that's truly wide open going into this camp. Throughout your career, did you ever have that situation where the running back, number one running back spot was just wide open between a bunch of guys?
Yeah, some years you do. I can't remember my rookie year. Obviously, when I came in, it was John Volpe was the kind of came out of nowhere to kind of take over at running back. But the thing about running backs and what we've seen over the years, guys, up here, is that they usually a few of them emerge every single year, right? And so I would suspect there's going to be a couple of guys at this training camp that are going to jump out and they're going to be very successful. I think it's at one position. There's always seems to be a lot of running backs around. I'm looking forward to. Is it Anderson? That's the kid from the Bills that they've signed.
Antonio Williams.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Not Anderson. It was Williams. Yeah, he's the guy I think would probably be the front runner. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, that's fair to say. He was an addition on free agency day, and we kind of spruced that up with the others that had come. I know Ryan Rigmaiden, talking to him, Giulio, Raymond Calais, formerly of the LA Rams, another one to keep an eye on. But that's intriguing. You're right. There's 4 or 5 solid options here.
Yes.
But Williams, I would say, would be one to watch. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so it's just one of those things, guys, that I just learned over the years. Like, you're gonna find a couple of guys that are gonna emerge out of that pack. Most of those guys got very good pedigree. They're not rookies. They've been around the pro game. They know what it is to compete at this level. And I just think that they're going to be guys that, that are going to emerge. And that's the exciting part about training camp, is finding those guys.
I guess on the other side of the ball now too, there's a lot of spots that are pretty solidified going into camp.
Yeah.
There's safeties, maybe a spot that you could look at as a battle. What intrigues you there on the defense?
Is it Quincy is he penciled in there?
I believe right now it would be Quincy Moget's spot, yes.
Yeah, Moget's the guy that, and he came a long way last year in training camp, right? So, I think, through different circumstances, they had to make some moves to get people on the field. But I think he's just going to be, I always am very intrigued by the guys that come back in their second year.
Right.
With how much more comfortable they are with the game. You know what I mean? Like, they're comfortable with their surroundings. They're comfortable with their teammates. They're comfortable knowing what to expect, what's laid out in front of them. There's no second guessing. So you see it, you see these guys really kind of get comfortable and really kind of allow themselves to really kind of show their athleticism, because there's not much thinking going on. So he's a guy that I look forward to. Ben Alatic is a guy who came a long way last year. He's earned a spot. Manny Ragumba is another guy that, I look forward to seeing, his what he does for an encore, because what he did out on the field, was pretty spectacular. So it's, I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of these guys compete.
I know for most of the winter, a lot of people, ourselves included, haunted by the vision of Brady Oliveira just running all over the place. And up front, you always talk about Giulio. That was where they had to get better. But you bring back a Sean Lemon. You still have Menard and Betts on the other end. A guy who's coming back for year 2, Nathan Cherry. First-round draft pick Francis Bemi as well, fighting for those interior spots. You got the night train, Josh Banks. Miles Fox, I know they're very high on. How intrigued are you to see how much the defensive line will be improved? Because it has to be.
And you're right. It has to be, right? That was one of the things that they talked about, getting better at that spot. And, I think getting a guy like Sean Lemon, I think, really helps them. He's a guy that's proven. It just seems like every year, like, you count him out and he just gets better and better. And I just think too, like, I talked to him a little bit more at Grey Cup last year, and he's just such a good guy. He's just such a
Yeah.
he's been around. He's a great character guy. I think that he's going to do a tremendous job being a leader in that locker room, and yeah. So I all those guys that you mentioned are got to contribute to their ability to be able to stop the run, right? And that's the big thing that you have to be able to do. Are they going to be able to get after the quarterback? Absolutely. With Menard and Betts and Sione coming back, those guys are all going to bring an element off the edge. But it's going to be the interior part, and we talk about second year guys. Nate Cherry's a guy that I look forward to seeing what he brings to the table his second year. So all those elements are going to be front and center, and that's again why I enjoy training camp so much, is to see that development and see we're going to get a couple of surprises. I don't know who they're going to be, but every year we do. And it's always intriguing to see who those guys are that step up, whether they're rookies or whether they're guys that are coming from other leagues that are finally getting an opportunity to play. I look forward to seeing those guys emerge and give us lots to talk about and think about as far as a few.
Wanted to
I'm here.
I wanted to quickly touch on. I mean, everyone's 0-0 now, right? I mean, that's what Rick Campbell's going to be preaching. Last year was great, but that's over. I mean, everyone in the West improved. Neil McAvoy said it today, but how do you view this division going in? You still view the Blue Bombers as the team to beat? I think that would be a fair assessment, right?
Yeah, I absolutely. Until someone knocks them off, they're still top of the mountain, right? So, but I do see it as being very, very competitive in the West, as always. I think Edmonton's going to be better. I can't see Chris Jones's team not being better. There's just no way. And Saskatchewan, I think there's still some question marks. Obviously, getting Trevor Harris helps them at the quarterback position. And anytime you got a veteran quarterback, you're going to give yourself a chance. I still think there's some question marks about their offensive line. Calgary is going to be Calgary. They're going to be coached well. They're going to be fundamentally very sound. They're going to be good on both sides of the ball. I don't know if they're going to be a team that's going to overwhelm you with the big play kind of team that they once were. They used to be able to strike at so many different points, but obviously with Jake Maier now taking over, he's a different kind of quarterback. So I think they're going to be a little bit more methodical, and that's going to be, Dave Dickinson, right? He's going to want to run the ball, and they're going to screen and, swing out, me out into the flats and just really kind of nickel and dime you and take their shots when they can. But I see the West being very, very wide open. Again, injuries are always going to be a factor, but I would say Winnipeg at the top. And then as far as the rest of it goes, I really, it just all depends on who can stay healthy. But you have to think the Lions are going to be right there, given their lineup, given the experience they have at quarterback, not just with Vernon, but with Dane. So I see them. I see Calgary battling for that second spot, and I think Edmonton's going to be a team you're going to see come up the back end there and try to sneak into the playoffs. So it's going to be very, very competitive.
That's got to mean the Elks are going to get a win at home this season too, right? You're predicting that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Jonesy's a very, very competitive guy, and sitting on all that stuff in the entire offseason, it didn't sit well with him. And so I would be really, really shocked if they weren't competitive this season.
And then on the flip side, out east, the defending Grey Cup champs, they're rolling with Chad Kelly as their QB1, who ultimately secured the win for them in the Grey Cup. Are you surprised by that? And do you see Toronto as a top team, or maybe
you're right? Team, right? I am surprised. And the other thing too, what you can never ever, you can think that what you have at quarterback is good, but until you get into games, right, and see what he can do. Like, I know that they're high on him, and I what he's done so far has been, but once you're the guy and you got to go in and week out, that's a big matzo ball when you go with a pretty much an unproven quarterback. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays itself out. Hamilton's going to be there with Bo Levi at the helm. They had some talent, but they just were so inconsistent offensively. But he's going to bring some stability there. Montreal, I'm not 100% sure what they're going to have a quarterback. I know Fajardo's there now, but he really struggled last year, so I wonder whether Jason Moss can get him back on track. So Ottawa, Missoli coming back. I think Ottawa's, if they can stay healthy and they can stay healthy at the quarterback spot, they're the team I think you could see with the most improvement, because I think they were devastated when they lost their quarterback. And if they can keep him healthy, I think they're going to be way more competitive.
In your mind, then, are the Argos in the East, they're still the team to beat, or are you looking at Ottawa or Hamilton, or who do you think?
I say Hamilton, Ottawa. That's what I would say.
Interesting. Yeah,
if I were to pick, those would be the two teams that I would say are gonna fight for it. And I still think Toronto's going to be competitive, but until Chad Kelly proves to me that he can do it. And hey, everyone was saying the same thing last year about Nathan Rourke. So a lot of things can happen, and hopefully for the league, Chad Kelly does well, because the league needs to have some new young stars at quarterback, and he definitely would fit the bill.
Well said. Thorough overview as always. That's why we get you on, and we'll see you in the tournament capital, buddy. This is great.
I'm looking forward to seeing you guys face to face, and I'm glad your off seasons were good, and let's get back into the trenches.
Yeah, let's take a bigger step this year than we did last year. Indeed. Thanks, Giulio.
Good stuff. Okay, guys.
Thanks,
take
Giulio.
care.
See you.
Excellent stuff as always with Giulio Caravatta, here himself, and the Moj back again, and Karen Sermon, at least for part of the action. Home games for sure, sideline reporting. Another year of great coverage on the Lions Audio Network, AM 730. Lions and Rough Riders in Regina. We hit on it off the top. May 26th will be there. Game on the 27th. Preseason in Regina is always fun. Any football game in that area is fun to attend. And yeah, you can hear it in everyone's voice. Giulio, the players, the coaches, everyone is excited. And while we have a few minutes here, opportunity to promote. Again, we've done a little bit as far as camp content, but you and I experienced something cool. Went to the Seattle free agent camp a week ago Sunday, I guess it was, April the 30th, and we spent some time with assistant GM and U.S. scouting director Ryan Rigmaiden, some mic'd up content, kind of go through that whole process of recruiting U.S. players, and they got a signing out of it as well.
Exactly, too, and he's someone that's extremely important to this organization and maybe doesn't get the attention that he really deserves, because when you think of the Emmanuel Urgambas, the Sione Tuihemas, the Quincy Mojés from last season, those are guys that are scouted by Ryan Rigmaiden and ultimately brought in by Ryan Rigmaiden. So someone that plays a massive role in this team's success and the team building overall. And yeah, just feature this next arrow up. It's going to feature him. It's going to showcase the job that he does, especially when it comes to the free agent camps. And ultimately, the signing from that free agent camp was quarterback Judd Erickson. That's an exciting one too. A quarterback coming into camp.
Yeah, so we'll have 5 quarterbacks total. Obviously, we've talked about VA, Dane Evans, Dom Davis, Judd Erickson, the West Shore Rebels prospect, the Canadian Quarterback Internship Program. That's T. Jesse. So 5 arms at camp. I suppose 2 or 3 of those will be, 2 of them, I guess, will be with the rookies here. We will submit a full training camp roster later this week. Still some uncertainties as far as exact numbers for rookie camp, but by Thursday, Friday, you can go to bclions.com and see the roster breakdown and the position charts, everything that goes along with that. So yeah, it's exciting times, and we encourage everyone to watch the first 4 Arrow Up episodes. We've gone inside the draft war room. We've broken down free agency. We've broken down the start of the process. The torch officially passed to Vernon Adams Jr. No shortage of excellent storylines. Lion Kings, Tacoma camp, speaking of action in Washington State. So it's a tribute to the access these players and coaches give us.
Exactly, too. And like I put on Twitter earlier this week, the remainder of the storylines are to be told. We don't know what they're going to be, because they're going to be documented in training camp. The running back battle is something I definitely want to get into.
Yep.
With IROP, it's definitely going to be featured. All of the names that are coming to camp and competing for that starting spot. And then the one thing I love about the storytelling aspect we get to do is that we're doing it on the fly. The stories come to us. We don't know what they're going to be. So that's another aspect of training camp that I'm really looking forward to.
Arrow Up is where it's at, bclions.com. We'll be doing at least a couple of podcasts up there, First and Now from the campus, Thompson Rivers University. Maybe we'll find a more comfortable spot this time around. I know we were hijacking the coach's meeting room last year, and then remember that episode we did with Burnham, kind of in the foyer of the cafeteria, and there was a guy setting up a pipe and drape right next to us, and for whatever event they were doing. So rookie mistakes, but we're going to be doing them. We know that.
Yeah, looking forward to those. We'll have some guests in person. It's always fun. We can get multiple guests on at the same time. We have the equipment for that, so looking forward to all that.
Looking forward to it. Drive safe, my friend. We will be up there from May 10th to 30th. BC Lions training camp presented by Sun Peaks Resort, City of Kamloops. Shout out to Tourism Kamloops. Again, plenty happening in the tournament capital between now and the end of the month. And it's an honor to bring you all the content as per usual. I am Matt Baker. He is Nick Kowalski. Kowalski, see? Perfect game's over in the bottom of the ninth. But we will talk to you from the tournament capital next week on First and Now.